Thank you for listening to All Things Tech.
And welcome back to All Things Tech. Today we are going to be going over the hollow Earth, and we're going to be looking at other planets in the solar system, which also appear to be hollow if you can take a look at the North and South Pole. So it's pretty difficult to get good imagery of the North and South Pole of planet Earth. When you do, they've pretty much got it all blurred out. And if you look at Antarctica on the North Pole, if you can find imagery, they definitely have most of Antarctica blurred out. So here's a picture of the moon, looking at the North Pole of the moon, and you can see what looks like could be a hole directly in the center, and there's more craters around that area as well. Now looking at the South Pole of the moon, you can see what looks like a hole in the South Pole of the moon as well, which they also look like a crater, but also there's a big ring around the outside where you can see those red arrows on the outside. So it's just a bizarre looking photo, and a lot of the planets actually look like this. So looking at Venus's South Pole, they've totally blurred this out, totally crossed out the South Pole of Venus, and looking at the North Pole of Venus, they've completely blurred that out too. For some reason, they just don't want you to see that. Saturn's South Pole, it's kind of funny, all these planets just look like big jawbreakers. And here's the South Pole of Saturn, which just looks like a big jawbreaker. Here's the North Pole, big hole in the middle, or what could be a hole, I guess, another jawbreaker looking image. Many of the planets look like that. Now, looking at Jupiter, here's what they've been showing us for years that Jupiter looks like. Here's the, I believe this is the South Pole of Jupiter. Not a very clear image, but you can see there's some type of hole there. But now if you look at the new imagery of Jupiter that they just recently released, these pictures are pretty bizarre. They show blue colors and swirls, blue and white swirls. It's much different than the imagery that we've been looking at of Jupiter. And these are just photographs, so I'm not able to zoom into the poles. Of course, that's not what they took a photograph of. But the new imagery looks quite different than the old pictures of Jupiter, which is just kind of a blur. Now here's a look at Mercury's South Pole. Kind of looks like a moon. Looks a lot like our moon, where the craters start to cluster in the South Pole. But again, a large hole directly in the center of the pole. And now take a look at Mercury's North Pole. You have clustering craters in another dark area. Now you have to remember that they're manipulating all of these images, so whatever is there could look a bit different than that. And here's a picture of Europa, where you can see what could be some rocks or even structures on there, but if you look at all of these lines that are on the picture, those show definite signs of water pathways, water streams on Europa, which scientists do admit that there is water on Europa, but that's clear evidence right there that there is. Those should not have formed unless there was flowing water. But when you're looking at pictures of the Earth, it can be really difficult to find any photographs of Antarctica, and that's a big part of the hollow Earth theory as well as the flat Earth theory. They just don't want you to go to Antarctica. The information that's coming out of there isn't being released, and you're not able to book expeditions there, or not very easily anyways. But Mercury was quite strange looking, looks a lot like the moon, and even our moon, the North and South Pole seem to have holes just like the Earth do. So this is a pretty good proof, I think, for the hollow Earth theory. If you look at all the planets, you can tell NASA's faking these pictures, but many of the pictures are real. They've just been photoshopped over, and if you look at the pictures of Venus, I mean, they didn't even try to make it match. They just blatantly blurred the image out. Venus looks a lot like the sun. But if you can get imagery of the planets, you can look at them all, and you can see that they clearly seem to have entrances on the North and South Pole. That seems to be a typical shape of a planet, where they have openings on the North and South Pole where you're able to actually go inside the planet. Now that is not what they say Earth has. They haven't released any information that Antarctica does have an opening, but private testimony has been released that has confirmed that people have not only found the hole but entered into it, and what they found in there was pretty phenomenal. So if you are interested in that, you can look up Admiral Byrd and Billy Woodard, and they've got some pretty good information on that. That is all the time we have today. Thank you for listening to All Things Tech.